from the Washington Post reveals former President Donald Trump and his allies have started mapping out specific plans to use the federal government, to punish his critics and opponents if he wins a second term in the White House. The plan has been dubbed Project 2025, and the Post reports that Trump has named individuals he wants to investigate or prosecute. Those people include former Chief of Staff John Kelly, former Attorney General Bill Barr, former Attorney Ty Cobb, former Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Mark Milley. That's according to people who have talked to Trump and spoke on the condition of anonymity. A person familiar with the matter said Trump has also talked about prosecuting officials at the FBI and Justice Department. Additionally, the Post reports the former president's associates have drafted plans to potentially invoke the Insurrection Act on his first day in office to allow Trump to deploy the military against civil demonstrations. Joining us now is one of the co-authors of that new report, national political reporter at the Washington Post, Isaac Arnsdorf. Isaac, thank you so much for reporting on this. Tell us what else the former president plans to do if he wins re-election.
Well, simply put, he wants revenge. He wants to use the power of the federal government to punish his critics. And what's the crime that they committed? It's the crime of criticizing Donald Trump. But the big takeaway from our reporting is not just that he is saying this, it's that the people who are around him, who are angling for a job in his second term, are starting to come up with detailed implementation plans to actually do that. So that means that they will be staffing the White House with people who will carry out those orders, and that they will be eliminating the traditional insulation between the White House and the Justice Department to clear the way for Trump and his aides to be directly involved in criminal prosecutions.
Isaac, one of the other really attention-grabbing parts of your story is the Insurrection Act, which, of course, hasn't been invoked in quite some time, to say the least. And we know that the president and President Trump and his team considered it in the summer of 2020 during the George Floyd protests, which in many cases became anti-Donald Trump protests. But you've got new reporting that suggests that they might try to invoke it again soon after taking office to, I assume, quell the uprisings that would be against his election and inauguration. Tell us a little bit about that. How serious is this? Are they confident it could survive legal challenges? And frankly, just how unprecedented it would be?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this is another thing where Trump has actually said publicly that he regrets not deploying the military in the summer of 2020. And if given another chance, he will not hesitate. So his associates, specifically Jeffrey Clark, the former Justice Department official who viewers will remember as co-conspirator 4 in the federal case and a co-defendant in the Georgia case. Jeffrey Clark is hearing this and is starting to work on a plan on day one, prepare a justification to invoke the Insurrection Act, which would empower the president to deploy the military domestically against civil unrest, temporarily suspending posse comitatus. And, you could try that to challenge that in court, but, the reality on the ground would be not exactly martial law, but something in the neighborhood.
Wow. The Washington Post, Isaac Arnsdorf, thank you very much for your reporting this morning.